Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm Joy Zhang. I'm the head of data and insights at Thomson Reuters Foundation, responsible business team. So, as many of you may have known, like WDI and AICDI is introducing the new scoring methodology this year, starting from this disclosure window. So today's session is mainly an informational deep dive session into the new scoring methodology. So we want to use this time to explain in a little bit more detail on how the scoring works and how different types of company response are assessed and what that means in practice. So before we get into the details, I also want to highlight that the scoring methodology is now largely finalized. It has gone through several stages of development. We have started with our internal research and drafting and followed by the external public consultation, including both investor consultation and wider public stakeholder consultation. So I really want to show our appreciation here for everyone who took their time to reading our the initial concept note, framework, and all the details criteria and share your very, very valuable feedback. Now we have tried to incorporate as many feedback as possible into our new scoring methodology, and my team will also talk you through into details. We also carried out 2 rounds of beta testing and made further adjustments based on what we learned from the whole process. So what we're sharing today reflects the full development process and the feedback we have received along the way. So for the session itself, we will first walk through the scoring framework in more details, including some of the key rules and design choice behind it. So my teammate Kevin will lead on that part. So we will then share a summary of the main feedback from our investor consultation, including some key areas where our the investor signatories were particularly aligned, as well as we heard different views. So our teammate Shruti will talk about how we are responding to the different feedback. So then finally, we will move into a series of practical examples to show how the methodology works in practice. So for example, how different type of companies' response may lead to different scoring outcomes. So for certain type of response, what the maximum score would be. And we will also very much welcome questions throughout the whole session. So if anything is unclear or if there are any particular scoring scenarios you would like to us to explore, please feel free to raise them. And also, most importantly, if you guys are not don't have enough time to stay the whole session, so don't worry. The whole session is recorded and we will be shared with all the participants and as well as to publish on our website. I will now pass over to Kevin to start today's session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joy, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Myself, Keval Manyal, and I'm working as a senior data specialist at Thomson Reuters Foundation. And yeah, today we will walk you through that methodology part particularly, right? So, yeah, so what does we want to discuss first about what methodology delivers, right? So the WDA 2026 framework is actually the architecture by which the survey response we received across all 13 sections that are there in the survey, which we have actually evaluated, aggregated, and converted into the comparable scores, right? So scores are calculated at the three levels, like upward in upward manner, right? So topic level, section level, and company level. So in just to quickly brief over that, right? So we have lots of questions into the survey, and a few of the question is aggregated and make a topic, and and few of the topics is aggregated and make it at a section, and all the section aggregated which is make it as a company or overall level, right? So we have developed the scoring at granular at topic level itself, right? So and we also have company receives the 4 output score and not just the one. This is what we have idealized and designed, right? So it's in scale of 0 to 100 at overall composite score and 3 dimension score: awareness, approach, and actions, right? So important thing is here is that to underline the consistency, right? The same architecture applies to all the topics. So we have 31 topics into entire survey, and whether we are scoring a governance topic or supply chain topic, the underlying mechanism does not change, right? So quickly in one line, each awareness asks whether the company recognize its workforce obligations. Approach asks whether the governance frameworks are in place. And actions ask whether the company is effectively implementing into the practice, right? So we'll unpack each of this in the next slide. Yeah, so we have the 3A architecture. Yeah, so this is we'll deep dive more in detail about the basics, and then we will go further, right? So every topic in WDI survey is evaluated across the three locked dimensions, right? So I want to stress the word locked here, right? So this dimension does not change from topic to topic. So we have fixed base, like what changes and what not, right? So think it as of like a maturity progression from recognizing an issue to acting on it, right? So what awareness asks is, does the company knows like what is workforce risk are, right? That means the company recognizes, identifies, or acknowledges a workforce issue, risk, or topic, right? And what approach ask is, does the company have a framework itself to manage those risks, right? And the action is like, does the company effectively implement and demonstrate the framework in practice, right? That is a implemented practice program and operational measures that actually we taking check from our surveys. One important caveat is that, and it matters for later slide, not right now, but yeah, which is important. Not every topic use all three dimensions, right? So the assignment of awareness, approach, and action tag, which is based upon the underlying questions itself, right? So if we feel that the underlying question does not have all three dimensions based upon what we have asked into the survey, what we have mentioned into the guidance, so it depends. Like some topic might only have awareness and approach because the underlying question does not fulfill the action criteria, and we will yeah, so we will not unnecessarily put an action tag forcefully, right? So this is how the survey is designed, right? So in the next slide, we will discuss about the scoring scale, which we actually identify the 6 scoring scale. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so this is just, I want to quickly about the dimension of the scoring, right? So when we score a particular company, right? So on each dimension, so we have a scale of 0 to 5, right? And the scale reflects the quality and consistency of evidence, right? Not just how much a company disclose. So let's walk through about 6 dimension very quickly, right? So note or score 0, it's not relevant evidence is provided. I mean, like company has not disclosed anything at all, so that topic does not, get any kind of a score. The minimal is acknowledging in passing only, right? So no specific detailed information is provided. While in basic, at score 2, some evidence exists, but is limited in scope or in depth, right? And while inadequate, the clear substantive evidence which is provided. While in score 4, which is strong, comprehensive and specific evidence structured. So which is and score 5, right? So best in class disclosure, and it is systematically or regularly reviewed and externally verified. So all possible things of the survey actually get the full score of 5, right? So this and also this scale is depend upon the how much content that question holds, right? So this we will also discuss in the next slide, right? So why this scale actually varies as well, so which is depend upon the content. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so I just want to highlight, right? So we don't want to forcefully apply the whole scale to one particular topic, right? Because not all dimension are actually cap at 5, but not every topic needs to have all 6 levels. The first standard scale is like 0135. This distinguishes absence, basic, developing, and leading practices without unnecessary complexities, right? So the example here is like the human right policy commitment on awareness. For an example, it simply evaluates the public disclosure of a commitment, its alignment with globally recognized standard, the scope of commitment and disclosure of commitment, right? So only the 4 parts. So no, there are no unnecessary or extra say questions are there into that particular topic. So the scale would be varies as well. Second is a very granular scale, right? So 0 to 5, it's all levels will be available. This is used where the scope of differentiation across each level is high. Uh, and the governance structure and management, for an example, the awareness and approach here are tested through a number of parameters, right? So there would be a lot of parameters, lot of questions available in the topic. The presence of an oversight body, like, or a workforce topic, it covers its remits, its responsibilities, and its monitoring mechanisms. And because of these parameters, we have a wide scope of differentiations and the full scale. That's why it's warranted, right? And similar way, we have also the shortened scale as well, like 0, 1, and 5. This is used where a dimension has only 2 or 3 meaningful distinct status, right? For example, kind of a get questions or yes no questions with some simple evidence provided. So in that, we also have a limited scale as well. So yeah, this is the kind of a scale varies. And yeah, then we will deep dive into the how the score actually build up, right, from topic to company. So this is it is a very kind of interesting topic. So for each topic, we have a three or possibly the three dimensions, right? The awareness, approach, and actions, right? So we simply are going to be average of this to make a topic score. Like composite score is equals like awareness plus approach plus action divided by 3, where we have the 3 dimension applicable. But when we have 2 dimension, then we will divide by 2, right? So it's simply algebraic on that, and then we multiply by 20 to get on scale of 100. So this is how the topic score is calculated at granular level. And for example, at section score, right, the average of all topic underneath the particular section. So we have around 13 section, and we will average the respective topic score to get one particular section score. And for company score, the sum of section score times the sector weight. So here we actually not taking all 13 WDI section as equally weighted, but we have a sector weight that we will also discuss later in the slides, like how weights that we have applied and what those weights are. And then it's kind of a weighted average of section, and we will get a company score. So let's take example on topic score first. Like on the next slide, it is the human rights due diligence, right? So same formula, the three completely different maturity profiles, right? So composite equals awareness, approach, and action divided by 3 into 20. This example is built around the 3 survey questions on human right due diligence. So we in human right due diligence topic, we have 3 questions, right? There is a yes, no, get. And if yes, then follow-up question, and if not, then for why, right? So this is only 3 questions under this HRDD topic. And based upon what company has responded, like for company A, if you see, right, the company has a robust HRDD mechanism with detailed evidence of process. Awareness score is 5 because HRDD is fully implemented, right? And implemented across direct operations and the tier 1 supply chains, aligned with the UNGP and OECD principles. The approach score 5 because they have detailed a comprehensive process, right? And so and that's why they received a score of 5 in awareness. And same way, in same way, in terms of approach, they provide a DEX-based risk mapping plus on-site human rights impact assessment, right? A board level oversight, a corrective action plan, and grievances mechanism. So all this is what we have asked into the questions, into the guidance element of a particular questions, and that company has already provided those information, right? So that's why a company get a score of 5. Similar way for the action, the company also, because the company's action, the company has mentioned in the survey, like they mentioned the actually the KPIs, right? The previously identified risk and what the corrective actions the company has taken, and that's why the score is the 5 of in each 3 dimension, and that's why the average become 5, and score would be 100 out of that, right? So similar way for company B, they have published a methodology. That's why they have some awareness score. The aware score is 5. And approach, because the company has documented the process with defined scope, uh, and scope, accountability, and board oversight, and ILO standard. But KPI tracking is somewhat is absent. While in action, only 1, because the implemented is present but in limited, right, to a single assessment with no reported outcomes. So this is like criteria that we have defined, and based upon that, it has reached this action at score of 1. And if we make an average of 3, and it score becomes around 60. right? Similar way, the very company C, right, that does not have an active HRDD process, right? So, but has an implementation plan, right? So even though company select, no, we do not have a policy for any of the topic, but we follow the why not questions very well, right? So even in the why not, how much detail or depth the company has provided, and based upon that, the score has actually received in approach is 3, but there is no action because of the get question they selected a no, and that's why their average becomes of 2 and score of 40. So this is how it works for all the topics, and we receive the very granular score at topic level, right? So now we will discuss about the section score, right? So similar way, once we have the section score, suppose for the section name is risk assessment and HRDD, right? So inside that there are 3 topics. The topic 1 is HRDD that we have already discussed in the previous slide, which is one of the topic. But similar way, there are other 2 topics as well. And as I mentioned earlier, right, for the section score, we are just taking the average of all the topic, right? So overall section awareness would be average of all the awareness, average of awareness of all the available topic, and similar way for all other dimensions like awareness, approach, and actions, right? So and one thing to observe here is right the downward staircase, right? 73, 47, and 27, like in respective score under the awareness, approach, and actions, right? So this it itself tells a story, like for this company, for an example, has a good amount of recognitions, and but there is a little bit of weak governance or in terms of implementation practice, and action is very low on terms of implementing that risk assessment and HRDD, right? So this is itself tells a story about how this 3 score is differentiated, right? So this is like how a section score is calculated. Now we will put all the section score and come up to the company level score in the next slide, right? So here we will take an example of healthcare sector. So so sector, like the weighting is also varies sector to sector, right? So that we will also discuss about how our weighting is defined, and it is how it is varies sector to sector. So for now, just to get an idea about the overall level, we focus on the healthcare sector first. And as I said, we have 13 section, and for each section, like if you see, like we have applied some weights like health and safety and well-being, weighted at 9.8%, which is like for example, it stand out, it is 93 score on awareness, 87 on approach, and 80 on actions, right? So giving an 87 of composite score, which is the highest in out of all the sections, right? At the other end, responsible sourcing, if we take as an example, section number 12, the weight is only 3.3 for this sector, and the score, the lowest composite is 51, but also its weight is low, so it might have the limited impact on the overall scoring, right? So rolling this all 13 sections up, and we have the overall awareness is 79 and approach is 72, and all are just all dimension is the weighted average of the respective score on all 4 dimensions, 3A and a composite one, right? The two takeaway from this is that first is the company is strong across direct operations, whenever see the section 1 to section 10 particularly, and slightly lower on the value chain through 11 to 13. And second is the spread, right? So again, the same spread like 79, 72, and 64 across 3A. It also tells a story like recognition is running ahead of implementation, for an example, right? So hold this pattern in mind, right? So we have also like a practical example later on the slide. So we will discuss more on that, right? So the gap of awareness and actions particularly. So now I will just quickly go through the weight metrics in practice in next slide. So we have around 11 GICS sector, but here in the sample that we have provided the 4 sectors. So not every like workforce issues, right? That matters equally for every industry. So each of the 13 section is assigned a specific weight for each 11 GICH sectors, right? So uh, uh, the financial weighted risk assessment and HRDD, right? So if you see for the financials, the weights of HRDD, diversity, wage level, pay gap, and training and development, all around it's 12%. But the health, safety, and well-being, which might be not that much of material, which is weighted around 4%, right? Compared to the energy sector, the same health, safety and well-being and responsible sourcing, which is slight higher at 9.4%. And likewise, right? So how much material or how much importance the topic is. And two things that we need to notice here, right? Two sections, if you see the governance, right, which is fixed at 10%, right? Because everywhere, because the board level accountability for human rights or human capital is treated as a universal and material, right, issue under UNGP Pillar 1. And similar way for the grievances mechanism sits at 5% everywhere because access to remedy is a universal obligation, right, under UNGP Pillar 3. So every worker, regardless of the sector, needs a route to raise a concern. And due to which, I mean, we focus fixed the weight of governance and grievances mechanism, and rest 85% is, it is distributed across the materiality of the topic, which is very well thought and which is based upon some like CSB materiality map or ILO core label standards, know the chain benchmark, or yeah, UCS triple D, and lots other framework as well. So based upon that, the weight has been assigned. So yeah, this is, I mean, the main core of the methodology, and it is how actually it works, right? So this is how we have built up the score. And now one thing that I wish to discuss is about the scorecard. That how the final scorecard will look like. So we are also in plan to create a scorecard, and here it's just a like kind of a tentative homepage of the scorecard, but it will have much more in detail into the scorecard. And here, if you see in the example, actually all 3A and composite score and table underneath is also compares, right? The overall company list we have average with that, the sector average, the regional average for all three dimension as well as the composite score. So it is just at overall level right now, but in detail we have section level or topic level insights as well, that it will be helpful companies to focus and which topic to be implemented, and for investors as well, right, which area to be would be the engagement topic to engage with a particular company where the company is lacking. We also provide like some we'll also provide like top 5 or bottom 5 topics as well into the particular scorecard, right? So the one thing is like again that I we discuss about awareness minus action here in this example as well. The 34-point gap, the company recognized considerably more than is currently operationalized, right? So this is, I mean, all about the scorecard, but how using the scorecard to benchmark, that we can maybe deep dive into the next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here, if we see, right, so yeah, the core idea here is simple. I mean, every score sits alongside the sector, regional, and all company averages. So holding is never a judge in isolation, right? So go back to we go to company one, right? The example we just walked through, the company A leads it is sector average on every dimension, right? Most notably the action dimension, right, which is plus 14 points compared to their sector average. The number only something the number only means something because we have sector average to compare it, right? So without the benchmark action 50, it's just a number. So that's why the benchmark which is helpful to identify when we compare with the region, country, or all company average as well, right? So this is what turns a scorecard from a static report into that kind of a stewardship tool. This is what we have thought while creating this scorecard. And the same logic applies whether you are looking at the overall composite score or H3 dimension score. So here, even the raw score is very important to understand what company is actually doing in each three dimensions, right? So now we move on to the next slide, and keeping in mind, like benchmarking is what tells an investor not just how did this company do, right, but how did the company do relative to what it should be done, right? So this is what it will do, right? So now if we take here as we discussed, right, so it will also suggest the top 5 top performing topics and bottom performing topics. For example, company had the two standout strengths like where pay gaps ratios and the work life balance, right? So both scores 80 plus. On the other side, the 5 topic flagged for attention, right? The governance structure and management, like monitoring DNI or discrimination and harassment, freedom of association and grievances mechanisms, all score around a 53. So, and it's just interestingly like all five share the exact same pattern, right? High awareness, but approach and actions both dropping to around 40, right? So this is not a coincidence. It's genuine approach and action gap, meaning governance structure has not yet caught up to the recognitions. Each topic row even comes with a suggestion, so it's action needed, a description things like strength and governance. So we also provide like kind of a next step, what company can achieve to achieve the next level of score based upon the criteria defined. And so, yeah, this is exactly the kind of granularity that turns a score into actual engagement questions a stewardship team can put to a company rather than just a number to compare, right? So previously we had a simple disclosure score, and now this time we try to put a lot more to get a company and investor all should be benefited and get more insights, right? So this is what its core heart from in terms of scoring methodology. Now we will, I mean, as Joy mentioned, right, we also discussed and consulted with the investors, and we go through the beta testing as well. So next step, I mean, my colleague Shruti will lead you about how the investor consultation feedback, what we have received and how we have approached. Yeah, over to you, Shruti.
Thanks, Keval, for the detailed overview of the scoring methodology. So before we move into the scenario walkthroughs, that will be also quite detailed to kind of showcase how the scoring methodology actually can differentiate between different scenarios. I would like to spend some time on what the investors actually also told us during the consultation, because a lot of what you're seeing that has been implemented in all of these, in the entire 3A architecture has actually come up with through a lot of discussions alongside the investors as well. In terms of the overall structure of the framework, the response was strongly positive. Multiple investors specifically welcomed the shift from rewarding disclosure volume to assessing genuine quality. And they acknowledged that the 3A architecture would be useful for stewardship, enabling them to distinguish between the surface level disclosure from those that have, more of the scaffolding and the infrastructure for the process that lies underneath, as well as the ones that can provide actual outcomes. There's also something else that I would like to highlight, that one of the questions was, are these scoring methodologies, are they aligned with the regulatory framework? And we have also now mapped the regulations to the entire survey, so that entire detailed mapping is also available. And so while the 3A architecture was widely appreciated, uh, we did hear feedback on equal weighting of the 3A, the awareness approach and action bit. And interestingly, there was sort of a disagreement on that front as well. So while some of them argued that action should be weighed on more heavily because it matters most to workers and it is harder to evidence, there were others on the opposite side of the spectrum saying that governance and policy foundations genuinely have to precede the outcomes, and especially on emerging topics. So, awareness and approach will deserve more weight and not less. One of the points that was also raised that counts as action differs meaningfully by sector, and so a manufacturer that needs machinery and shop floor changes, while there will be professional services, which will for whom the action will mostly end at the policy change. So essentially, a flat definition of action might risk penalizing certain sectors. And these suggestions, have been very important and have been quite fundamental while we designed the methodology, and have been clearly a part of, taking into consideration of the survey itself as well as the scoring bit, and have, been now integrated into the scoring. And some of these inputs have also been part of the beta testing phase, and we will try to ensure that, the fix is relevant and it appropriately addresses all of these issues in a very balanced manner. We also heard that the skip level scale, such as the one with the 0, 1, 3, 5, might penalize the incremental progress. And we would like to essentially bring out the fact that the scales vary by topic based on evidence depth, which is genuinely achievable. So this sort of like a skip level scale is by design, and it helps us to avoid false precision and is not an inconsistent factor. So structurally, the most of the 31 topics apply the OR logic up to score 3, and this is where the substantive engagement in any one area is enough. And the AND logic only kicks in at scores 4 and 5, where full evidence across all elements is required. And that is meant to reflect the practice, the depth of practice that exists, and not essentially to penalize a company for incremental progress. There were also concerns regarding the sector weights metrics, and this has been clearly, brought out very specifically by Cable earlier as well. And there were mentions of, whether financials and utilities sector weightings on supply chain are, are they underweighted with respect to the CSDD due diligence, the CSDD expectations. And they also looked at the subsector granularity, pointing out that, professional services within industrials might differ from the capital intensive manufacturing bits. Uh, all of these factors have also been taken into consideration. Also, the fact with respect to the geographic risk weighting, asking essentially a country which is at a regional level, if they're asking about human rights risk in supply chain, should the while we are factoring it, is there sort of a bias, and can we test to confirm that the methodology does not systematically favor companies which are present in higher regulation markets. Now, again, all of these have points were very valid, and we value each of these suggestions. And this has been described earlier as well. So all of these sector weighting metrics were based on proprietary research, and each weight has been specifically designed to address, certain linkages to certain factors that weigh more or less, depending on certain sector-specific standards. And for example, the lower supply chain weights for financials and utilities, they will stem genuinely from the lower supply chain dependency, which is, in relation to materials, that's much lower. And this is not essentially an oversight. We have also acknowledged that these factors will be again looked into during the beta testing to see if there are any anomalies still left out. And in terms of the investor use cases, the consensus here was unambiguous. Topic and section level 3A breakdowns were highly actionable for engagement, particularly for what investors are calling gap closing conversations, where recognition clearly exists, but the implementation is lagging. There was a heightened interest in bringing forth more insights from these scores to enhance decision making and engagement and stewardship. That's the full consultation picture. And this is the feedback loop that leads us into the next section, which is on the realistic scenarios to show that these design principles, how they're actually operating. And I would like to invite my colleague Joy to take us through these examples.
Perfect. Thank you both Shruti and Kevo for the very detailed introduction of our methodology and the consultation feedback. So I know it's loads of information to digest. So I would like to take a pause here just to remind everyone, feel free to send your questions into the Q&A section. So we will address the questions at the end of the session. And for the question I can see at this stage, I think it's very few of them very, very important. And there's two questions I would like to address quickly, and the longer one I will address it later. So the first question I would like to briefly answer is will the response be reviewed of AI or human? So for this, this is a really good question. So as many of you may know, our data preparation process is assisted by AI. So similar for the scoring process as well, the initial scoring will be generated with AI assistance. And then we will have at least 2 rounds human review for the quality assurance, and also additional human review process may triggered if any kind of the scoring quality issue is flagged. So after we generate like the initial scoring, so we will review at least the like 500 companies scoring by human, and then like we will then after that do another round of like the check based on the like the K sector and regions to ensure the quality. And very important to flag. So we will also generate 2 rounds of the scoring. So you will receive like the initial scoring based on the pre-pub data. It's like the data we mapped together based on the public available information, public disclosure. And then after disclosure window, once we gathered like all the self-disclosure data, the scorecard will be regenerated based on your self-disclosure scorecard. And company do have the right to decide like which scorecard you'd like to maintain at the final stage. So this is like short answer for the score generation process. And another question I like to address quickly is the one asking like where can we say the specific weights for the sector that our company is in. So first of all, like we use like GICS sector. So I will follow up with my colleague Rosie. Like we will make sure like all the company who took part in WDI survey, you will definitely have a look, say like which sector and which industry group like your company is sit in, and then the specific ways and also like the logic behind that will also be published into our WDI website, and you will receive like the email notification if you're part of our company network. Great. For the other question, I will definitely make sure we will address that later. So, given the time, I will start in talk everyone through like some examples to understand better how this score methodology works in practice. So let's start with a very common question. So if a company is preparing to carry out like human rights due diligence, but has not implemented it yet, how does the scoring reflect that? So for example, like company A, like that operates across 14 countries and has like 800 suppliers. So it has not yet carried out a formal HRDD, but like it already gives a clear launch date, describes the several interim measures, and explains why it takes a phased approach. So there is quite a lot of information in the response. Even with that level of the detail, we need to say the maximum score on the not yet pass is 40 out of 100. So the reason is structure. So action is 0 because HRDD process is not yet in operation and there is no solid evidence that it will definitely be put into the implementation. However, the awareness can reach 3 because the company has definitely recognized the issue and the importance of the HRDD, and also like we will assign like the 3 for the approach because it is set out a clear plan. But because like there's no evidence of the like existing HRDD practices, so both of these will be kept at this level. So the key point is that the fitting reflects the stage of the implementation rather than the judgment on the quality of the plan. Can we go to the next example, please? Thank you. Okay, all right. So the next scenario shows like how the methodology handles the same disclosure gap in different legal settings. So suppose there's 2 companies that both do not report ethnicity pay gap data. So there's one company who is based in Germany and explains that the local law prevents it from collecting the relevant data from their employees. And company B based in North America, and then they has not collected the data due to some other non-legal reasons. So the methodology will distinguish that between those 2 situations. So for the company A, the legal constraints will definitely be taken into account. So provided the company clearly explains the basis for the omission. So for company B, the missing data remains a part of the assessment because the same legal constraints, or at least a similar one, does not apply. So the scoring is not based only on whether data points is present. It also considers the reason of like the data is not available. So not only for the legal exceptions, we will definitely carefully evaluate all the reasons the company provided here to demonstrate why they probably hasn't shared the response or the data points publicly. So let's move to the next one. Okay, so for the third example, we would like to talk about how we evaluate the response, how we treat it the quality over the quantity. So the company A here lists the 10 human rights risks, but they does not give any further information on where those risks occur and how these risks are were identified or how they are being managed. And meanwhile, the peer company, they identifies only 3 human rights risks, but they do provide very detailed context for each of them. For example, the location, the supplier location or the operating location of this risk, and also the risk driver and the assessment process and all the company's response to this kind of risk. So on our criteria, the company B will receive a higher score because the scoring looks at the level of the details behind each of the identified risk, not simply the number of risks listed. So the point here is not that 3 risks are better than 10. It is that methodology won't give more information value to risks that are described in a way that can be better understood and assessed. So we are moving to the next example. Yes, could you please move to the next slide, please?
Joy, Joy, I'm so sorry to interrupt. You're gone a bit muffly. Maybe if you could move a bit closer to the microphone. Sorry.
I'm really sorry about that.
No,
so
that's better. That's better.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Really sorry about that. So feel free to interrupt if the muffling happening again. Sorry, I'm in a place the internet is not that stable. Okay, great. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, great. So for the next one, we're going to talk a little bit about the zeros are positive. So for example, the company here, they have the grievance mechanism in place, but they don't have any formal grievances were raised during the year. Should it enter 0 or leaving the field blank? So purely for the scoring purpose, a reported 0 provides a clear information than the blank field. So a blank does not tell us whether there's no grievance, whether the company does not track them, or whether the number was just simply not reported. A 0 just tells us the data was tracked and the 0 was reported the outcome. So distinguish here is also very simple. So blanks means unknown and 0 means checked and reported. So we will assign the score accordingly for the 0, but if that's blank, the score will definitely be much lower. We're moving to the example 5. Okay, great. So now let's look at how the same section score can fit into the overall score differently across the sectors. So taking an oil and gas company and an asset manager that both score 72 on the health, safety, and well-being. So for the energy company, the section carries a higher weight because the health and safety has a greater relative materiality for the sector specifically. But for the financial company, the topic still matters for sure, but it carries a lower relative weight. So the same score of 72 can make a difference contribution to the overall results depending on the sector weight. So the point here is not the topic is important for one sector and unimportant for another one. The weighting just genuinely reflects the relative importance alongside the other workforce topics relevant to each sector. And also very importantly, I want to flag here, given we receive quite a lot of the very diverse opinion about how sectors are going to be weighted across the different topics. For the final scorecard, everyone will receive the weighted adjusted scoring and also the unadjusted scoring, which will showcase non-weighted scoring and then the suggested weighted scoring. So we'll pause here, even though we still got quite a lot of example, but I do want to give everyone a chance to to ask the questions, and we will also address the question at this moment. If we still got some more time, and we will talk more examples, and all the all the examples in the slides will be uploaded to our website as well. So great. Before I'm trying to answer any question, just want to check again, is my audio sounds all right?
Your audio is great now. Thank you. Yes, Joy.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's try to let's get into the questions. So the first one, from Purple, is would you be able to provide question level scoring guidance to help us understand how the response will be assessed across different scoring scenarios? For example, what will score 3 out of 5 points means for a particular question? Cavill, do you mind addressing this question?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a list of scoring criteria as well, right? What is point 0.3, what is score of 5, what is score of 0. So yeah, that we can share it with and we'll try to make it public as well. So it will have the topic level documents for each topic. Inside that we have awareness, approach, and action. So inside awareness, we have scale of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wherever applicable, and what 0 means, what 1 means. Because we for inside one topic, there would be a multiple questions, let's say question 1, 2, and 3. And the criteria would look like this, right? So for score 0, if all the 3 questions has a 0 on terms of awareness, criteria 1 would be like any one of them at least a company has responded out of this, then it will be get a score of 1. So yes, we have those a score has those scoring criteria for each topic ready, and we will discuss and try to make it public. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the answer. If any other follow-up questions based on that, feel free to keep sending a question here. All right. The next question: how will you ensure the score are normalized across sectors, taking into account the different level of risk and opportunities faced by each sector, so the final score remain comparable? So, as we just introduced, we will assign the sector-based weighting, and then giving the different thoughts on which sector should be assigned relatively higher or lower weights for the topics. We will share both normalized, which is the weighting adjusted scoring, and also unadjusted scoring. For the sector scoring, for the sector weighting, Carol, do you mind just refresh everyone's memory, just
Yeah.
briefly talk a little bit again about the weighting?
Yeah. So our thought process and our thinking on that front is to rather than normalizing for sector, we have assigned weight based upon materiality or importance of those particular risk towards that industry, right? So this is and we actually gone through the ILO standards as discussed, right? Or maybe SASB materiality map, know the chain benchmark wherever applicable, and based upon that we decide and we assign a tier, right? So high, medium, and low category for the particular section could be for that one particular sector, right? And then we actually assign the weights for that. So and we believe this is itself a normalization, and every score would you receive for a company would be directly be comparable across the industry and across the sector when we compare it. So and what it is, right? So when we say for the financial companies, the supply chain would be definitely have a lower weight, and this is what it actually has been reflected. And anyway, we also have the raw scoring that we will provide, right? So any investor or company, they feel free to use those particular score, apply their own logic and weights as well. So this is we provide the data and our methodology as well as the raw data as well, right? So it will work parallelly for both. Yeah, so this is what we have defined.
Great, thank you, Kevin. So, for the next question, it's a little bit long, so I will just take the question part, like how will WDI ensure the scoring is properly normalized and with basically like giving the fact like the relatively smaller number of the submission received each year, like how the relative and comparable like score will be generated and reviewed. Right. So I would say like we are not aiming or like have the objective to provide like the relative performance scoring. It's just it is our scoring like fundamental like logic is like we like based on our like over 10 years experience with the social disclosure and all the consultations with our stakeholders. All the scoring will be based on our scoring criteria, which has been clearly laid out and will be fully transparent. And the scoring criteria again is aligned with our guidance. So that means like we are not going to like purely assign the score based on how relatively a company is better or worse, because every company have their own journey. We want to make sure the score itself we provided can reflect a company's their own workforce management maturity as well as their social disclosure maturity. However, like for companies who do took part into the WDI scoring, we do anticipate the scoring will like reflect the most accurate performance, I would say, because as I mentioned earlier, the scoring will be generated twice. The first scoring will be generated based on the public information, the public disclosure data, and then once the company share their disclosure with us through like take part into WDI, we will regenerate the score based on the we assume like the more detailed social disclosure shared with us. But again, no matter which information source we use, the scoring criteria will remain the same. Hope that addressed your question. All right, we got one more question. So would WDI verify the response provided by company or is purely assessed based on the disclosure submitted by the company? So the WDI do not have any like audit or like the verify of the response itself. So we do have some spell check to verify the response, like just cross check with the documents, but we do not verify if the company if the response company shared it fully reflects their real practice. However, for the company who took WDI disclosure, that will say the final question is for us company to acknowledge all the information they submitted is aligned with their real practice or similar like that. So as I said, the scoring itself will based on the response company who shared with us and also the public information we sourced from their ESG or sustainability annual report. Okay, all right. So we got 3 more minutes now. I really want to thank everyone for their time. So please, if you got any more questions, feel free to send it now. We will just wait for a little bit more to see if any other questions coming up. Okay. Okay, thank you, Purple. I'm glad the questions are clear. So we again just want to thanks everyone for who took time to join the consultation and also join today's session. So we really want to encourage everyone have a close look of our WDI scoring framework as well as the very detailed scoring criteria. Once we starting the whole scoring process, we will also notify the companies, and the companies who took we are also aiming to share the initial scorecard during the disclosure window, and then companies who took part of the WDI should be able to see some initial gap analysis. So we really hope this year's disclosure window could make some difference for companies. And if you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to to my team and myself as well, and we will try to address them as much as possible. Oh, okay. All right. I just saw one more question. So we will address that question and then wrap up. So the question is like, why the weight for HRDD higher for financial than for energy or consumer discretionary? Carol, do you mind to address this question?
Yeah, just a minute. Let me read it once. Yeah. Why is the weighting of human rights is higher for financial discretionary than for the energy or human rights due diligence? Okay. Uh, just a minute. Yeah, so in terms of in financial industry, right? So that is what we have gone through in terms of the CS triple D documents or the ILO standards that we have referred, and based upon that, like we believe, so if you see that not just risk assessment and HRDD, right? But the DNI, if you see the high level and pay wage levels and pay gaps, as well as the training and development, right? So all are make it equal, right? So it is like we are assigning into the tiers, right? So it's like high, medium, and low category, and based upon that, there is like a relative scoring as well, right? To assign the weight. So whenever we say a high, we assign a kind of a score of a 3, 2, and 1, and we make kind of a weighted average, and due to which it will get a more it will get the relative weightage of 12%, and it will, and if even if you for other sectors, if you could see, right? So the majority it will stay in the same percentage, right? A few chunk like 9.8, 9.8, 9.8, for example, in healthcare sector or energy sector, if you see 9.4 and 6.3 is coming 3 to 4 times, right? So which is based upon which tier the sector has been, which tier that how materiality is assigned for the particular sector. This is how it is actually designed, the weighting accordingly. Yeah. So this is why we believe that it should be standard 12.1 based upon the underlying calculations, and it is a fixed, right? So it is not like a judgment basis. It is actually rule based scaling or rule based weighting.
Great.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
that addressed your question. And again, just to remind everyone, so like the raw scoring and also weighting adjusted scoring will both be shared with everyone, and like we do encourage everyone to like based on their own use cases to adjust the raw scoring for their own engagement to or like like any other stewardship purpose. Great. We just overrun a little bit, so hopefully that. I thank you everyone for your patience to stay with us, and hopefully that helps you better understand this year's new scoring methodology. And again, like if you get any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or my colleagues, and we really appreciate all your continued support with WDI. We will now wrap up today's session. Thank you and take care. Bye.